You don't say it out loud, but you've thought it more times than you can count. I am tired of giving everything to everyone else, only to end up with nothing left for myself. You move through your days wearing masks. You smile when you're exhausted. You nod when you want to scream. You say, "I'm fine," when, deep down, you're carrying a storm no one sees. You give your heart, your time, your energy, and yet when it's quiet at night and you're left alone with yourself, you wonder, when is it my turn? When do I get to choose me? But you rarely admit that, do you? Because women are taught to serve, to bend, to hold everything together. You've been told that love means sacrifice, that worth is found in how much you give, that strength means swallowing your own needs. And so you've gotten good at hiding the ache. You've convinced yourself that maybe one day he'll see how much you've carried. Maybe one day they'll appreciate all the times you put yourself last. But here's the secret you rarely let yourself whisper. You're exhausted. Not just in your body, but in your soul. Exhausted from waiting for permission to live your life the way you need to. Exhausted from hoping that someone will finally love you the way you've loved them. Exhausted from silencing your own voice because you're afraid of what might happen if you speak it. And yet, there is another voice inside you, isn't there? Quiet, but insistent. The voice that says, what if you stopped waiting? What if you stopped sacrificing yourself for everyone else's comfort? What if you chose you? You feel that voice in moments you can't explain. The moment you're scrolling through old pictures and don't recognize the woman staring back at you. The moment you say yes to something you didn't want and your chest feels tight, like betrayal. The moment you catch yourself daydreaming about a life where you are free. Free to say no, free to walk away, free to put your own heart first. And then you shut it down. You tell yourself it's selfish. You tell yourself people will be disappointed. You tell yourself it's too late. But deep down, you know the truth. The life you're living right now is not the one you were meant for. So let me ask you a question you can't ignore. What would change if you finally chose yourself? What would change if you stopped chasing the man who only gives you half love and instead poured that love into your own growth? What would change if you stopped apologizing for your boundaries and started honoring them like sacred ground? What would change if you decided, once and for all, that your worth is not up for debate? Because here is the truth no one told you. When a woman finally chooses herself, everything shifts. Her relationships shift, her energy shifts, her future shifts, but more than anything, her soul shifts. From silent survival to undeniable freedom. And maybe you're afraid of that shift. Maybe you're afraid of losing people, afraid of being judged, afraid of standing alone. But let me tell you something. The moment you choose yourself, the right people won't run from you. They will rise to meet you. The ones who can't handle your truth were never meant to hold your heart. But here's what makes this even more powerful, and I'll tell you more as we go deeper. Choosing yourself doesn't mean abandoning others. It doesn't mean becoming cold or selfish or unloving. It means, for the first time, you love yourself enough to stop abandoning you. And that changes everything. Because when you choose yourself, you stop begging for love and start attracting it. You stop chasing approval and start living in your power. You stop waiting for permission and start writing your own story. And one day, you'll look back and realize that the life you thought would fall apart when you chose yourself actually began in that very moment. So I ask you again, and this time, really feel the weight of it. What would change if you finally chose you? Stay with me, because by the end of this, you'll see that everything you've been waiting for begins the moment you do. You wake up and the first thing you do is reach for your phone, not because you want to, but because you're hoping. Hoping his name will be there, hoping his message will tell you that you matter, that you're not invisible, that you still have a place in his world, but the screen is blank, no text, no sign. And you tell yourself, it's fine, he's just busy. You put the phone down, but already the doubt has crept into your chest. You walk through your day wearing the smile everyone expects. At work, you laugh at things that don't feel funny. You say you're good when people ask, because it's easier than explaining the ache you carry. You've mastered the art of appearing strong, of holding it together, but inside you're tired of being the one who always bends, always waits, always wonders. And then there's the silence, that long, aching silence between the moments he decides to remember you. You tell yourself not to care, not to need it, but you do, because part of you still believes that if he really cared, he would show you without you having to beg. So you check your phone again. You scroll through old conversations just to remind yourself that once he did care. Once he did choose you. And yet, the version of him you're holding on to feels more like a memory than a man. You push the thought away. You carry on. You distract yourself. You make dinner. You fold clothes. You take care of everyone else. You tell yourself, this is what women do. We endure. We give. We wait. And yet, every time you put yourself last, something inside you breaks a little more. And when night falls and the house is quiet, that's when it hits you hardest. You lie there staring at the ceiling, replaying the day, replaying the years, replaying every moment you swallowed your voice just to keep the peace. You wonder, is this all there is? Is this what my life is supposed to feel like? Because the truth you rarely admit, even to yourself, is that you feel unseen. You feel like you've been loving at full volume while being loved in whispers. You feel like your worth has been measured by how much you can give, not by who you truly are. And maybe you tell yourself you're strong for staying. Maybe you tell yourself it's loyalty. Maybe you tell yourself it's patience. But deep down, in the quiet moments, you know the truth. It's fear. Fear that if you finally choose yourself, you'll lose him. Fear that if you stop pretending, people will leave. Fear that if you put yourself first, you'll be called selfish. But here's what you don't see yet. That fear is the very thing keeping you trapped in a life that doesn't feel like yours. And isn't it strange how you can look so put together on the outside, but inside you're constantly questioning your worth? How you can be the strong one for everyone else, but when you're alone, you're the one crumbling. How you can give so much love and yet be starving for the same in return. This is the reality so many women live in, and maybe it's the one you've been living in too. The waiting, the pretending, the doubting, the endless cycle of hoping someone will finally give you permission to choose yourself, when deep down, you already know the truth. That permission is yours to give. Here's the truth you've been afraid to admit, the one you bury under excuses, the one you soften with maybes and some days. No one is coming to rescue you. No man, no friend, no family member is going to suddenly see all the sacrifices you've made and hand you back the pieces of yourself you've given away. If you keep waiting for that, you'll wait a lifetime. I know that sounds harsh, but hear me. It's not meant to break you. It's meant to free you. Because the moment you stop waiting for someone else to choose you, you open the door to the life you were meant to live. The life where you finally choose you. But this is the part that scares you, isn't it? Because choosing yourself feels dangerous. It feels like loss. You're afraid that if you stop bending, you'll break the relationships you've worked so hard to hold together. You're afraid people will call you selfish. You're afraid he'll leave if you stop giving more than you get. And maybe he will. Maybe some people will walk away when you stop carrying all the weight for them. But listen closely. If your worth is tied to how much you sacrifice, then you were never truly loved. You were used. And that is not the kind of love you were born for. The truth is, when you finally choose yourself, you're not destroying your life, you're saving it. You're breaking the cycle of abandonment you've been living in, where you abandon yourself just to be chosen by others. You're saying, my needs matter, my voice matters, my dreams matter. And that shift will feel terrifying at first, but it will also feel like oxygen. Think about it. How many times have you silenced yourself to avoid conflict? How many times have you put your dreams on hold because someone else needed you more? How many times have you said yes when everything in your body screamed no? And what has it cost you? Your peace, your confidence, your joy. But here's the part you don't want to face. No one forced you to betray yourself. You chose it, over and over. You chose them instead of you. And that's the truth that stings. Because if you chose it, then it means you can also unchoose it. That is where your power lies. When you finally choose yourself, you're not saying, I don't care about others. You're saying, I refuse to care about others at the expense of myself. You're not saying, I don't need love. You're saying, I refuse to mistake neglect for love any longer. You're not saying, I don't want connection. You're saying, I want connection that doesn't cost me my soul. And yes, this will change things. People who benefited from your silence will be uncomfortable with your voice. People who thrived on your giving will resent your boundaries. People who only stayed because you made yourself small will fall away when you finally take up space. But here is what you gain: your self-respect, your peace, your freedom, and the kind of love that doesn't require you to lose yourself to keep it. So here's what you need to admit. The thing you've been avoiding, the life you're longing for, isn't waiting on him to change, it's waiting on you to. The day you decide to stop waiting for someone else to give you permission, that is the day everything begins to shift. Because when a woman finally chooses herself, she stops living as a shadow of who she is. She stops begging for scraps of love. She stops apologizing for taking up space. And she begins to live in the truth she's always known deep down: that she was never meant to be half loved, half seen, half alive. So let me ask you plainly, how much longer will you keep betraying yourself in the name of love? How much longer will you keep waiting for someone else to do what only you can, to finally choose you? It's time. And yes, it's terrifying. But it's also the most powerful, life-altering choice you will ever make. Because when a woman finally chooses herself, everything changes. But let me ask you something you can't ignore. If you keep giving everything to everyone else, who is going to give back to you? If you keep silencing your needs so no one gets upset, who will ever hear your truth? If you keep putting yourself last, what happens the day you finally realize there's nothing left of you to give? And what if the reason you feel so empty isn't because you're unworthy, but because you've been pouring from a cup you never stop to refill? What if the exhaustion you carry isn't proof that you're weak, but a sign that you've been strong for everyone except yourself? Think about it. How many times have you waited for his text, hoping it would erase your doubts, only to feel the same silence creep back into your chest the next day? How many times have you told yourself, it's fine, I don't need much, when deep down you were starving for more? How many times have you pretended to be okay just so the people around you could stay comfortable, while you crumbled in silence? But here's the question you've been avoiding. If nothing changes, if you keep living this way, what will your life look like 5 years from now? 10 years from now? Will you still be waiting for someone else to finally choose you? And what if the moment you finally choose yourself, the moment you stop apologizing, stop shrinking, stop betraying your own heart, is the exact moment everything you've been longing for begins to find you? Because here's what you need to know, and I'll show you before we're done. When a woman finally chooses herself, she doesn't lose love. She redefines it. She doesn't end up alone. She ends up free. She doesn't break everything apart. She finally builds something true. So stay with me. By the end, you'll see exactly why the choice you've been afraid to make, the choice to choose yourself, is the very choice that will change everything. Picture this. You wake up one morning and something feels different. The weight that usually presses against your chest is still there, but this time, instead of reaching for your phone to check if he texted, you let it stay on the nightstand. For the first time in a long time, you don't start your day waiting on someone else to tell you that you matter. You take a deep breath, and you decide, today I choose me. You move slowly, almost nervously, because it feels unfamiliar. You make your coffee the way you like it, not the way he prefers it, not the way you've always rushed it just to get through the morning, but the way that makes you pause, breathe, and enjoy. You sit quietly, and in the silence you realize, you don't feel as empty as you thought. You feel present. Later, when a friend asks you for another favor you don't have the energy for, you almost say yes, the old automatic response. But this time the word doesn't come. Instead, you pause, you smile gently, and you say, I can't right now. The earth doesn't shatter, your friend doesn't hate you, nothing falls apart, and in that moment something inside you clicks. The world can handle your no. And then comes the real test. He calls. The man who has kept you waiting, doubting, questioning. His voice sounds sweet, familiar, almost enough to make you slip back into old patterns. But instead of melting at his crumbs of attention, you listen differently this time. You hear the excuses you used to swallow, you notice the way his words don't line up with his actions. And instead of twisting yourself into knots, trying to hold on, you feel an unexpected calm rise inside you. You realize you don't have to beg to be loved. You don't have to shrink to be kept. You don't have to trade your worth for his convenience. And with a steady voice, you say the thing you never thought you'd have the strength to say. I need more than this. And I choose me. The phone call ends. There are no fireworks, no dramatic goodbyes, just quiet. But this time, the silence feels different. It doesn't feel like abandonment. It feels like freedom. You walk to the mirror, and for the first time in years, you don't see a woman waiting. You don't see someone doubting her worth. You see someone standing, someone choosing, someone alive. And that's when it hits you. The life you've been waiting for, the peace, the freedom, the love, didn't start when he chose you. It started the moment you chose yourself. Here's the truth no one told you, the truth you've always felt but never had the courage to say. The day you finally choose yourself, the world around you shifts. Because choosing yourself is not selfish, it's survival. It's the moment you decide that your worth is no longer negotiable, that your needs are not background noise, that your dreams are not second class. It's the quiet revolution that starts in your chest and spreads into every part of your life. When you choose yourself, you stop waiting for love that comes in pieces. You stop explaining away neglect and calling it loyalty. You stop apologizing for taking up space, for saying no, for needing more. You stop begging to be chosen, because you realize you already are, by the only person who matters, you. And everything changes. The relationships that once drained you lose their grip. The boundaries you once feared to set become the lines that protect your soul. The loneliness you were terrified of turns into peace. The reflection in the mirror, the one you barely recognized before, begins to look like home again. And yes, some people will leave when you choose yourself, but let them, because the ones who remain and the ones who arrive will finally meet the real you. Not the version watered down to be palatable, not the version bent and broken just to be kept. The real you, the whole you. The you that no longer begs to be loved because she already knows she is love. Here's the truth you can't unhear. When a woman finally chooses herself, she doesn't just change her life, she changes her destiny. She changes the way she walks into a room, the way she sleeps at night, the way she wakes up in the morning. She changes her past because suddenly all the pain becomes proof that she was meant for more. And she changes her future because from that moment on, she will never settle again. So, if you remember nothing else, let it be this. The moment you choose yourself, everything you thought you were waiting for begins to choose you too. You've carried so many versions of yourself. The girl who said yes when everything in her body wanted to say no. The woman who waited by the phone, hoping his name would appear on the screen. The strong one who held everyone else's pieces together while quietly breaking inside. The quiet soul who convinced herself that love was meant to feel like begging, like almost, like maybe someday. You've lived through it all, the silences that cut deeper than words, the apologies you gave when you weren't the one at fault, the nights you cried yourself to sleep, then wiped your tears before anyone could notice. You've carried these stories like invisible scars, and yet you still stand. But here's the truth you've been circling around without saying out loud. No one else can hand you back the pieces you've lost. No one else can give you the permission you've been waiting for. No one else can decide when it's your turn to matter. That moment, the one you've been aching for, has always been yours to claim. Because everything changes the moment you finally choose yourself. It doesn't happen with fireworks. It doesn't happen with applause. Sometimes it doesn't even happen with words. It happens quietly, in the stillness of your own heart. In the moment you look in the mirror and whisper, no more. No more shrinking to fit into spaces too small for your spirit. No more twisting yourself into knots just to keep someone else comfortable. No more apologizing for needing love, for needing rest, for needing more. No more begging to be chosen. When you finally choose yourself, something inside you shifts. You stop living as a shadow of who you are. You stop chasing scraps of affection. You stop confusing endurance with worth. And for the first time in your life, you feel what it's like to belong to yourself. It's not easy. It means people will notice the change. Some will call you selfish. Some will leave because they no longer benefit from your silence. Some will try to pull you back into the version of yourself that was easier for them to love. But the ones who stay, the ones who arrive, will meet a different you. A you who knows her worth. A you who doesn't have to beg for love. A you who stands unshaken in the truth of who she is. And isn't that what you've always wanted? To feel free, to feel whole, to feel like your life belongs to you again? This is the power of choosing yourself, the power of saying, I am not too much, I am not enough. I am exactly who I was meant to be, and I choose me. And once you make that choice, the world begins to shift. The people you attract change, the opportunities you see change, the way you walk into a room changes. Because for the first time, you're not asking permission to exist. You're not waiting to be loved into your fullness. You are love. You are fullness. You are already enough. So here you are, at the edge of everything you've been afraid of and everything you've been longing for, one decision away from the freedom you've always deserved. And here's the truth you'll carry with you long after this moment passes. The truth that will echo in your chest when you're tempted to go back. The truth that will replay in your head like a heartbeat. When a woman finally chooses herself, she never goes back to being the woman who waits to be chosen.